What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Well, we just had some breaking news. I was out on a walk. My phone starts blowing up. I cruise back by the pool. I look up and I see on the television NFL Network, and the bartender looks at me. He's like, "Can you believe this?" I say, "I kind of can." Now, listen, this news would have been shocking 3 weeks ago. No one would have believed that Jerry Jones traded Micah Parsons. But I do think the moment that everything happened at the last preseason game, showing up eating nachos, him laying on the training table, a couple days ago, him being in the airport, claiming he was going to get a second opinion, it kind of felt like it was at the point of no return. And so I guess my initial reaction is I'm not that surprised that this ended in a divorce. Now, I think big picture, you shouldn't be in the business of getting rid of high-end pass rushers. We have seen that happen once for a guy going into his second contract in the last 6-7 years, and it was Khalil Mack when the Raiders traded him to the Bears, and obviously All-Pro helped the Bears immediately become one of the best defenses. I do think there's potential impact for that. I think it'll be one of those situations where his back feels a lot better when he arrives in the Green Bay facility. He's on the practice field. I would imagine they're practicing on Monday. But just a historic move. And I do think when it comes to the Cowboys and Jerry Jones, they kind of hit the tipping point of like what's going on. We've been talking a lot about this, the Jerry Jones, Al Davis angle, and the situation just being pretty chaotic, not making much sense. You know, I understand you couldn't take Mike McCarthy seriously because you thought he should have got you over the hump in some of those playoff games. But when you move on from Mike McCarthy and you go with Brian Schottenheimer, who might be a nice guy, no one was hiring him to be their offensive coordinator, let alone their head coach. So maybe they know, like, we're not going to be that good anyway. Let's hit the reset button. Let's get a couple ones. Let's remove that money. Give us some wiggle room. We're obviously paying Dak and CeeDee Lamb a ton. Most people would say our defense isn't that good with Micah Parsons on the field. So basically hit a huge reset. And now it's on the organization to pivot and make good picks with this. Listen, I picked Green Bay to win this division before this trade. I think they're going to be really good. I mean, they won 11 games last year. They won one divisional game. And their quarterback got hurt in week 1. So I would expect the Green Bay Packers to be really good. So that pick is going to be probably minimum 24 with a chance to be, I don't know, as high as 31, 32. Like I think they're a Super Bowl contender. Now we got some question marks with the quarterback for sure, and LaFleur and Gutekunst, who have a new president now with Murphy retiring. Obviously there's some pressure, but it's kind of the polar opposite of typically what both these organizations do. Typically, Jerry has been very emotional with his guys and given them huge contracts. Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, Tony Romo, Des Bryant. I mean, he's done it for years, and rightfully so. I mean, we're talking Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, really, really high-end players. I don't blame him. Now, we could argue how the negotiations, how we've waited till the last second, like how much money has Jerry cost himself by negotiating against what? But like he has never done this. He has not been Bill Belichick punting on people. You know, you go back to watching that documentary when they traded Herschel Walker. It's funny how that move gets remembered. It's like they traded their best player. They were awful. They were a horrendous football team. That's not that weird. It's like, remember a couple years ago when the Panthers traded McCaffrey? The organization sucked. It wasn't that weird to trade him. Now, I was 4 years old, so I can't exactly go like apples to apples on all the trades over the course of NFL history. But when you trade guys in their prime and just, you know, for 3 straight years, you were a 12-win team and he was your best defensive player. You're the Dallas Cowboys. It's a historic move. And listen, I give the Packers credit because they took a lot of shit for a lot of years, especially with Ted Thompson. You know, they got a lot of credit for the Aaron Rodgers move. But it was like, hey, go out and make a big swing, get aggressive, do something bold. It's like they never quite did this. This is something that, you know, John Schneider has done. The 49ers, the Rams obviously have done it a ton. A move Howie Roseman would make. was always funny to me whenever I'd see the odds. If like this was like a month ago, if the Cowboys traded Micah Parsons, the Eagles, Jerry Jones, you can call him whatever you want. The last place on this planet he was ever going to trade. The Eagles could have offered him 7 first rounders, 7 second rounders, Lane Johnson, AJ. He was never trading him to the Eagles. It was never going to happen. But he traded him in the division, or not in the division, but to an NFC team. So I think I give the Cowboys credit on this one because ultimately this move happens because of Jerry Jones and obviously Stephen Jones as well. They're acknowledged we're not very good. Like they're telling you not very good, and the Packers are telling you we think we're a player away. Because unlike when the Bears traded for Khalil Mack, they were a player away on defense, and they immediately became a great defense. They had Mitch Trubisky, who, couldn't make like 7 of the 9 required throws to be an NFL quarterback. So it was never going to. Now, we're going to find out about Jordan Love, but they believe internally we got a guy that we can win within the playoffs. Hell, a couple years ago, we beat the Cowboys. Like, that's what they're telling themselves. We have a coach that's won a bunch of playoff games. We have a defensive coordinator that immediately improved our defense. This is the thing about the NFL. This is not Major League Baseball. This is not even basketball, where sometimes it's like, yeah, let's trade this guy because we don't want to max this guy. Every team, the Bengals, the Packers don't have an owner. You can pay a guy freights of cash. They just gave him almost $40 million guaranteed. If Micah Parsons doesn't have his catastrophic injury, he's going to see every penny of this contract. Like the guaranteed, the non-guaranteed, he's going to see it all. And let's be real on this. When you make a move like this, it's not about Pro Bowls and all pros. It's about you becoming the heartbeat of our organization, the heartbeat of our defense, and helping us make runs in the playoffs. Because it's different because he was a free agent. But when Mike Holmgren and Ron Wolf signed Reggie White, it changed the franchise. And obviously he's, one of the greatest players of all time. I'm not saying Micah Parsons is that because he's not. Like he's not even the best defensive player in the league. But he's damn good. And this is a team that has just, since Clay Matthews 15 years ago, like who's been their kind of stalwart up front? Remember they drafted the dude from Iowa, I think Van Ness, didn't even start in college. Newsflash, hasn't been that good in the pros, but Gudikins, LaFleur, they put their nuts on the table, and that's sometimes you got to do that in life, and Jerry did too. He's like, I'm over this. We're not good. I'm not paying 3 guys a combined $500 million to win 6-7 games. And I do think with that Eagles game right around the corner on Thursday night, he just had enough and didn't want to go into that situation. If you couldn't get a deal done with Micah, if you weren't willing to pay him this, to just get your teeth kicked in and have Mike on the sideline eating sunflower seeds in sweats, with Brian Schottenheimer, immediately everyone acting like he's over his head, it would have been a very, very toxic situation. And it had gotten weird and toxic, and it had clearly crossed the line, I would say, these last 4 or 5 days in most places. Now, I think the difference of the Cowboys and organizations, let's use the Packers, like Gudikins and LaFleur did a really, really good job when it got weird with Aaron Rodgers, right? They didn't have some owner making comments nonstop and adding fuel to the fire. And listen, maybe Jerry knew that this was going to be the end game. Maybe he knew the way this situation was going to end was going to be in a trade. And he knew he had offers. They had been taking calls. Got reported when I was, lying in bed. Hawaii might be in America, but it's a different world. The time zone's way crazy. It's like you just feel completely out of it. So you're like 4 hours late, even like 6 a.m. You're checking things that are going on. It's like they're not just taking calls now. They're listening to them. That tells you everything you need to know. Now, I do think over the last couple of days, they probably realized, like, fuck it. We're not doing this. For whatever reason, Jerry wouldn't deal with Micah's agent. He sometimes I think when egos get involved in contracts, especially of this magnitude, like it's hard to just swallow your pride. And clearly Jerry's at the point where there's no pride swallowing. That wasn't going to happen. And listen, Mogetta wasn't swallowing his pride either. So it's like, you're not going to call me. And it had gotten really weird. And now he's on the Packers because the Packers like, yeah, we'll do a deal with the guy. What does he want? 2 first-round picks, Kenny Clark, and $140 million guaranteed. Done. See ya. And now you look at the NFC North, that pretty stacked. I had the Packers winning this division 3 months ago, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, and again today. I haven't even looked at the odds. I'm sure I know the Super Bowl odds went from like 17-1 to 12-1. But, you look at the Minnesota Vikings, a lot of pressure on J.J. McCarthy, Caleb Williams. Does his head coach even like him? and the Lions, two new coordinators. So the Packers land Micah Parsons, historic deal. What a moment. The NFL, man. We get one of these every couple years, an enormous trade right before the start of the season. The rivalries, the marching bands, the upsets, Saturdays just got way more fun. College football is back, baby. Think you know the game? Put your college football knowledge to the test with DraftKings Sportsbook and turn your picks into big payouts. Live betting during the game, rivalry week odds boosts, and so much more. DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. Here's the thing. There is no bigger game than Saturday morning. Texas, Ohio State. I understand Arch has never started a big game. Played a couple last year, but never anything like this. Ohio State lost a ton of guys to the draft. I think this Texas team, if Arch lives up to the hype, poised to win an Natty, I'm taking Texas. I know it's at the shoe. I know it's a tough environment. I just think, as Earl Woods used to tell Tiger Woods, let the legend grow. That's what I would tell Arch Manning. Go win this game, cover that spread, money line, let the legend grow. And here's something special for first-timers, new customers. Bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the code John. That's code John for new customers to get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Final thought here. And this is just hit record and let it rip. So I'm just kind of freelancing here. You know, the Cowboys play the Eagles from recording this in about 7 days. And the Eagles are basically a touchdown favorite. Now, granted, they're at home and they're defending Super Bowl champs. That thing could get really, really ugly. And sometimes when you have the negativity of a move like this, and I had a front row seat. I lived in the Bay Area. I was talking and covering. I hate that word covering. I'm not a beat reporter. But for my business, like I talked a lot about the Raiders and had been around that team a lot. And that move with Khalil Mack, it just hung over like a dark cloud for several years. And I just wonder, and listen, I would take Khalil Mack in his prime at the same age over Micah Parsons, but very similar situations. So you get that elephant in the room of Micah Parsons going to this bright lights team, this team that plays in a ton of marquee games. It can be hard to shake that situation. You know, this guy that felt like he was going to be a Cowboy for a decade minimum to now being on the Green Bay Packers. It's one thing when you just kick a guy into oblivion and you just send him to like the Jags. People are like, you Middlekauff, you always beat on the Jags. I'm sorry, it's just the team that comes to mind. But when you send him to the Green Bay Packers, who even when they're not as good are still good and feel like a lock to basically always be in the playoffs, it can feel worse. Now, here's the thing. Like, what's Jerry going to do? Fire his GM? You know, this isn't a Joe Shane moment on the phone talking about Saquon Barkley. Jerry's the boss. Jerry makes all these decisions. Like, this is the thing about Brian Schottenheimer. We know he has no juice. Like, it's like, what players looking at Brian Schottenheimer, like, he's making any important decisions? Of course not. That's not the way it works. But this feels like it can be a black cloud over the organization. And some of the parallels with Al Davis, you know, when they got Jamarcus Russell, and then it just started getting really, really weird at the end. And that's kind of what it feels like right now with Jerry. And ton of pressure. I mean, the pressure all falls on Dak. You know, I mean, let's face it, part of the reason that they pay him a lot of money isn't because he's Mahomes or Josh Allen. It's all the intangible stuff. Incredible leader. Incredible, like, just guy with the team, running, handling the offense, handling the personalities in the locker room. He's kind of the heartbeat of like their character standpoint of the intangibles of the Dallas Cowboys. And now even more falls on him. Because unlike the last couple of years, like Mike McCarthy was a grown-up. Won a ton of games, and handled Aaron Rodgers, and handled the Brett Favre situation, had been under the bright. Like Brian Schottenheimer, I know he comes from, you know, NFL royalty, a very famous dad who had a ton of success in the league for a long time, but this is a guy over 50 years old that was never going to be a head coach. And now the pressure, to me, kind of circumvents him because no one even takes him seriously to begin with and goes on the quarterback. And maybe Jerry goes, that's what we're paying him $60 million a year for. But man, I think this thing could get ugly, and it can get ugly really fast.